Welcome, Manish, to episode 5 of the podcast.
Thank you, Roy. Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Thank you for taking it on such short notice as well. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So, for those tuning in today, today we have Manish Paul, who's a yoga wisdom teacher, a life coach, and a speaker since 2003. He also hosts Himalayan silent wellness retreats and a Beyond Asana online yoga training course.
That's right. That's right.
Um, Okay, so Manish, I guess we'll start, straight to the point.
Yeah.
Topics mainly today will be revolving around spirituality. So I guess we'll start by, how would you define spirituality in general, and how can we sort of pass the message on to more people to sort of join the spiritual path? Because some people, when they think of spirituality, they would think of, having to become a monk, moving to the Himalayas, and that's what spirituality is. So, how would you define spirituality for the global population?
Roy, to be very honest, I don't really know what spirituality is
Sure.
simply because different definitions come around.
Right.
Uh, there are different, and what strikes me as you ask the question
Sure.
is I want to be present in this moment. Whatever it takes to be present in this moment, I would consider spiritual.
Right.
So if my back is paining and therefore I'm distracted from this moment, I better sort out my back.
Right.
If an overambitious mind doesn't allow me to be present in this moment,
Right.
I better sort that out.
Right.
The core essence cannot be trained.
Right.
It is already there.
It's already there.
The
Yeah.
wisdom that has made me into this 43-year-old person from a zygote, from a single cell, is inherent. I don't need to train it.
Right.
I just need to keep my distractions at bay so that that wisdom dawns forth.
Right.
I
Right.
would say that.
Right.
Generally speaking, that should lead to more love and more joy,
Right.
and that's the hope.
Right. Right. Yeah, it's a beautiful way to look at it, because what I've learned so far on my path that I've been on just for a year and a half now, is the power of the present moment.
Yeah.
Like you said, these days in such a fast-paced society,
Correct.
everybody's running around, thinking about their future deadlines or their future activities, or they're stuck in the past,
Yeah.
thinking about the past all the time, regret or guilt
Exactly.
or things like that. And like you said, that takes you away from spirituality.
Yes.
And that's the power of being in the present,
Absolutely.
which I've realized how much I had lost it.
Yeah.
Before my path, I
Yes.
realized that I was never present. My
Correct.
mind was always racing, either in the past or in the future,
Exactly.
and the present was never something to notice for me.
Sure.
It was always a means to just get to the next step and the next step and the
That's
next
right.
step.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
So yeah, I liked that. I liked the way
Correct.
you spoke about it. Um, and what about yoga, Manish? So yoga, you know, in at least in the Western world,
Yeah.
nowadays it's become, people think of the word yoga as mainly going to a studio and doing some postures or asanas.
Yeah.
That has become, the word yoga nowadays.
Sure.
That's what I had believed before, or
Sure.
what I had known. But of course, yoga, as you may know, is much broader than that.
Exactly.
So maybe you can, give us your view on what yoga actually is. When it comes to the union of,
Sure.
just the union for now.
Yeah. It is the longest lasting research, human research into what it means to be human.
Hmm.
So this research would have happened in Egypt, in Greece,
Right.
in South America, but
Right.
it was broken.
Yeah.
The yogic tradition is the oldest tradition into the study of what it means to be human.
Right.
There is no study that has spanned 8, 9 millennia unbroken.
Right. Wow.
There is no study that studies everything.
Hmm.
A psychologist is studying the mind.
Yes.
Somebody's studying nutrition, is studying only food. Somebody's studying just the body. Somebody's studying just the spirit.
Right.
A yogi is studying everything.
Right. Right.
So if I have this body, let me study it.
Hmm.
If I have this mind, let me study it.
Right.
Before I jump to any conclusion that there is some soul, there is some heaven, hell, there is something,
Sure.
let me study what I have.
Sure. Sure.
So yoga is meant for that kind of a researcher
Right.
who's not happy as Rumi would say, never be happy with others' stories.
Right.
For that kind of a researcher,
Right.
when you strip away all belief
Sure.
systems,
Sure.
you will study what you have.
Yes.
That is yoga.
Yes. Yes. And it's interesting you mentioned that, because something that I realized is, like you mentioned now, when you strip away all beliefs, right? Because what I've learned, Manish, is, since we're born, since day one, we're given, a name, we're given a gender, we're given a race, a religion, nationality, and we're told to, follow in these guidelines, and we're told to believe this and believe that, right?
Correct.
Different ideologies, whether different governments, politics, it all is like conditioning for the mind.
That's right.
And yeah, so then you start to realize that, what I've learned this from Sadhguru actually.
Sure.
He mentioned, when you choose to believe something,
Yeah.
it's so what does belief actually mean? Belief means you don't know, but you're choosing to believe.
Yeah.
And that way you stop to actually seek, because you've chosen to just believe something, like you just mentioned now.
Sure thing. And that works for some people.
Yes, absolutely.
For some people, belief is their bhakti yoga.
Right.
So like Christianity, Islam,
Yes.
a lot of parts of Hinduism is
Yes.
bhakti. The faith
Devotion.
is enough.
Yes.
For some people, the faith is not there. And for them, the mind is needed.
Mm.
So that questioning we call jnana yoga.
Yes.
For some people, either of them is not important, but they
Right.
want to help people around them.
Sure.
So we call that karma yoga.
Yes.
And for some people, they just want to work on the energy level. So if my energy goes up, there's a better chance for me to be a loving person,
Yes.
to question, and to serve.
Yes.
So that would be Raja Yoga, which is what
Yes.
we see in all modern studios.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yeah, that was actually my next point. The 4 paths of yoga, or what you just mentioned now.
Correct.
And what I've learned is that you can, choose a combination of these 4 paths, whatever suits your calling,
Personality.
your personality.
Somebody is a person from the heart.
Yes.
It should be bhakti,
Bhakti.
for them.
Yeah.
Somebody is a person from the mind. It should be jnana.
Yes.
Somebody is a person by the hands. It should be karma. And somebody wants to work with energy.
Right.
That's Raja Yoga.
I see. And could be a combination of the 4, right?
Yes, definitely a combination, because you cannot
Stick to it.
arrive at your potential with just the head, just the heart, or
Right.
just the hand.
Right.
If you're leaping onto grace, you want to use all of you.
Sure. Sure.
That would be.
Right. And yeah, the next topic I wanted to discuss, and I think I've seen this on your page as well, is the importance, whether on the spiritual path or not, of staying playful and fun and creative, and how important that is. Like I said, whether you're on the path or not.
Correct.
I've seen that you mentioned a little bit about this.
Yes.
So maybe if you can just touch on the importance of that.
Sure thing. When you look at a saint, when I use the word yogi, I mean it in a broad context.
Sure.
It doesn't necessarily mean Surya Namaskar Pranayam.
Yes.
When you look at a person who's accomplished or self-actualized, they're very playful,
Right.
very childlike.
Yes.
For us, we take life so seriously. The problem is what is going on in my head. I have mistaken that for life.
Right.
It's
Absolutely.
only going on in my head.
Absolutely.
And I'm willing to go to war. I'm willing to do all sorts of things because of what's going on in my head.
Yeah.
I think that is existence.
Right.
When I realize that that is just what's in my head and it has no existential reality,
Absolutely.
by nature I become playful. When I say I, anyone
Yes.
becomes playful because it is just a play.
Right.
At a certain age, say 80 years, if we are lucky, we're going to die.
Yeah.
And then most people, at least I feel it'll happen to me, I look back at life and say, I wish I had played some more.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Almost 100% of the people, there are no enemies outside.
Yeah.
But what's going on in your mind, your regret, like you said, your something, some
Guilt,
jealousy,
shame.
insecurity,
Right.
and you're just killing yourself.
Yeah.
There is absolutely no reason for
Absolutely.
8 billion people on the planet not to have a good time today.
100%.
But some way or the other, some dynamics in people's minds, either they're fighting or they're fighting amongst themselves internally.
Yeah.
And 8 billion people, and yet people are feeling lonely. This is a crying shame. So just that coming out of the mind brings about a playfulness. And imagine if everybody had that playfulness, we'd be living in paradise.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Like you said, it's because most people are stuck in the mind.
Correct.
Um,
Correct.
yeah, so no, I think it's very important as well.
Correct.
And you know, something else that I learned also from Sadhguru, I actually went to his event when he came to Dubai a few months ago, and he was saying that, you know, a child, say, you know, a 5 year old child, they have absolutely nothing
Yeah.
in life, right? No
Yeah.
possessions, no anything. And they're so joyful and they're so playful and they're laughing and they're
Yeah.
running around and they're having the time of their life.
Correct.
And then the adults who have everything, right? They have the
Yeah.
car, they have more money, they have the job, they have
Correct.
everything, and they are miserable
Correct.
and depressed.
Correct. Correct.
So when you want to look and learn from somebody, who do you want to learn from, right? Is it the child or the adult nowadays that you
Exactly.
want to learn from? And I think we can learn a lot from children, actually.
100%. The
Yeah.
absolute stupidity of seriousness. Like,
Yes.
you look at world politicians, they're serious.
Yeah.
Serious about what?
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
if you look at the news, if you look at, people talking in
Yeah.
in corporate offices, that they're serious about this.
Yes.
And amongst all spiritual traditions, the one that really captures the sense of playfulness is Krishna in the Indian tradition.
Okay.
Whereas a lot of spiritual traditions speak about suffering, about piousness, about prayer, he's playing with life. We call it a leela. It's a
Yes.
very unique archetype of a person playing with life,
Right.
doing the best, doing exceptional work, but because it's a play, nothing affects him. It's like water on the duck's back.
Right.
For
Right.
us, we get caught up in the seriousness,
Yes.
whenever people are just serious about everything. I have a
Yes.
feeling by the time we are 60, 70, we'll again be laughing.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God,
Yeah.
40 years
Yeah.
of my life chasing some stupid dream
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
that now I cannot get my time back,
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
but I was down some rabbit hole.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
it's in these years from about 20, 25 till about 60 that people are super serious.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've seen the old people also, they are just laughing.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. No, you're right. You're right. And you know, Manish, I think it stems from, again, you know, from childhood.
Correct.
What we learn and when you go to school
Correct.
is, you know, you need to work hard.
Yeah.
Life is hard. You need to be serious. Don't laugh in school. Don't laugh in class.
Correct,
It's
correct.
taught to us that seriousness is a very good thing.
It's a badge of honor.
A badge of honor, exactly, absolutely. Whereas being light and playful and fun and happy and creative is considered not a good thing or immature or not serious.
Really.
And like you said, like when you realize that actually it's the other way around,
Correct.
I think that's a big realization once you see that.
Correct, correct. And it's really funny because you're always told to grow up,
Exactly.
and yet we value people who at 35, 40 are playing a sport.
Yeah.
International athletes.
Yes.
We value people at 60 who are wearing leather pants and jumping on a stage, musicians.
Yes.
We value people
Absolutely.
who decided that they don't need to grow up. But we keep telling ourselves we need to
Absolutely.
be serious.
Absolutely, 100%. And then even I find, Manish, the people that are too serious,
Yeah.
say the people taking, you know, their jobs very seriously or life very seriously in their work and everything, on the weekends, all they want to do is play and have fun and go out and socialize. So even those guys are trying to, at the end of the day, play, you know? Because that's what life is really about, right? It's to enjoy it, it's to have fun, to learn, and to grow. Which brings me to my next point is how, you know, this life in general is really about the way I look at the world now, Manish, and the way I look at life. It's like a big school to learn.
Sure.
Right? So everything that happens, what I learned, Manish, everything that happens in your life is a teaching or a stepping stone or a lesson.
Sure.
And it's important to see it that way, I think, because it's not like if we have the good events, we're happy. If we have the bad events, we're not so happy anymore. Because what I've learned, Manish, even from a spiritual, looking at it from a spiritual angle, every event that occurs in your life is teaching you something. It's maybe the ego that doesn't like certain events or like certain events. But if you're able to stay conscious and to take an event for what it is, then there's not really any good or bad event. They're all life lessons.
Correct.
Yeah, anything you'd want to add to this?
I mean, at the end of the day, you have to find a coherent storyline to make sense of your life.
Yes.
For example, one of the storylines that we have in the Indian tradition is the story of karma.
Yeah.
Say, Roy, you have a child and the child is born blind.
Yeah.
How do you justify to yourself, your wife, your world, that my child was born blind?
Yeah.
So you say, okay, maybe that soul did something and therefore has inherited this fate.
Yes.
Whether it's true or no is not important.
Right.
The fact that it allows you to sleep well at night is important.
Correct.
In the same way, whether you learn from experiences, whether you think of life as a school or random, it just happened.
Yeah.
What are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
However you process it, as long as it lets you sleep well at night, I
Yes.
think that's important.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So if you have a system that processes it as learnings,
Yeah.
it's beautiful because
Yeah.
you're looking at it positively. If somebody else processes it as just something that happened and so on, so be it.
Right.
You have to find an operating system that allows you to make sense of the world
Mm-hmm.
without being too attached to that understanding, because that may change after a few years.
Right. Right.
The operating system should not rule you.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah. Good
My
point.
operating system just allows me to make sense of the scenario. There's a traffic jam, there's an accident.
Right.
So I process it in a certain way.
Yes.
It doesn't matter whether that's true or not true.
Correct. Correct.
As long as it allows me to smile.
Right. 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 Yeah,
I think that's important.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And something I've learned, Manish, is you are who you are, not in spite of what you've been through, but because of it. So
Yeah.
all the lessons, all the hardships, all the good things, the great memories, the harsh moments, the bad moments, things people may have done bad to you or not.
Correct.
All of these things have led you to where you are today.
Correct.
So it's not in spite of them, but it's because of them, actually.
That's right.
So it's important to realize that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we are here because of every single step that has happened so far in our lives.
Correct. Correct.
And when you look at that way, I think it's a really beautiful way to look at it like that.
Correct. Every morning that you get up, you have to do something for the next 16 hours.
Yeah,
Whatever it is,
yeah,
you have to do something.
yeah,
And therefore, what you do, if it leads to more joy, beautiful.
yeah,
If you have the energy and it leads to joy to others, very beautiful.
yeah,
As long as you can sleep well, if you're going to harm people, you're not going to sleep well.
absolutely.
So that, is a certain play to it.
Sure,
All
sure.
of us need to make a living.
Yeah.
It's not rocket science.
Right,
And all of us need to have some human connections.
yeah,
After that, it's just a question of, how do I maintain my ease as a surfer?
right.
The waves are hitting.
Yes,
You're surfing today.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's a nice way to look at it. The next point I wanted to discuss, Manish, is the whole path or concept of self-realization,
Sure.
or spiritual enlightenment, liberation. These are different terms people use. Essentially, the end of all suffering, physical and mental, or the end of the karmic cycle.
Sure.
If you can put some points on that.
Sure.
Yeah.
So if you look at it from different world traditions,
Yeah.
everybody is addressing their understanding of suffering.
Hmm.
So Christ has a particular understanding of suffering and
Right.
how do you resolve it.
Right.
Buddha has his, Krishna has his, Patanjali has his.
Yeah.
The first fundamental is that if you and me didn't suffer, there would be no need for spirituality, no need for prayer, no need for meditation,
Correct.
because life is all good.
Right.
The first moment we suffered, then we said, okay, what really is life? What is
Yes.
the meaning of life?
Yes.
Now I want to find something in me that does not suffer.
Hmm.
My body suffers, so I try to understand, is there something that is beyond the body?
Right.
Because this body is going to feel pain, it's going
Yes.
to feel old age, it's going to go.
Correct.
My mind suffers. Somebody calls me a cheat, somebody
Yes.
does something to me,
Yeah.
I suffer.
Yes.
So is there something in me that is beyond the mind? Now, we don't know whether there's something called the soul,
Right.
but it is one of the most beautiful ways to understand that something in me doesn't suffer.
Yes.
When death happens, it happens to this body mind.
Right.
It's going to go beyond.
Correct.
I've never met anybody who can 100% say that this happens.
Sure.
People do see past life. It could just be in their mind.
Sure.
It can be proven that they have been with these people in different lifetimes.
Right.
But nobody really knows what is beyond that moment.
Sure.
Systems and organized religions and spiritual traditions are trying to tell us what lies beyond.
Yes.
However, whatever lies beyond, we are looking for something in us that doesn't suffer.
Right.
And we feel that death is the ultimate suffering because we are gone. But something needs to go beyond.
Right.
Now, how do you then justify this whole process? So we have the idea of karma. So as you sow, so shall you reap.
Yeah.
When all my desires, so this is the Buddha's take on it, when all my desires have been understood, have been accomplished and understood,
Yeah.
then I reach nirvana,
Yes.
which simply means to extinguish. The literal meaning of that word is very beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
It means to extinguish.
Okay.
It's very unique because in the Abrahamic faiths, we are selling the idea, the dream of heaven.
Yes.
In the Hindu tradition, we are selling the dream of liberation.
Yes.
The Buddha doesn't sell anything.
Mm-hmm.
He just says extinguish. He doesn't tell
Wow.
us what happens. Is it good? Is it bad?
Right.
But just imagine, Roy, if you wake up, for some reason tonight Buddhahood happens to you,
Yeah.
and you wake up tomorrow with nothing to prove to anyone,
Yeah.
including yourself, for the rest of time.
Right.
How beautiful would your day be?
Absolutely.
You will just be free.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although he doesn't use the word free, he just says extinguish all your desires,
Right.
all your karma has been extinguished.
Wow.
Patanjali uses a similar concept. He says that once all your karma has been extinguished, then liberation happens.
Yeah.
So he uses the word kaivalya. The self stands in its own light.
Mm-hmm.
So in yoga, right now my self is clouded.
Who is it that says this?
Patanjali.
Patanjali.
Patanjali
Yeah.
from the Yoga
Yes.
Sutra.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
So he says that the self right now is clouded by the mind.
Right.
So Manish thinks Manish is this.
Yeah.
The self is watching my body and my mind.
Yes.
Currently, the problem is the self is fully merged with the mind.
Correct.
If there comes a time when the self is distinct from the mind,
Right.
then Manish's story is peripheral to the self.
Absolutely.
So he calls that kaivalya. For him, that is the end of suffering
Uh-huh.
because now the suffering can happen, the jealousy can happen, but I'm not identified with it.
Correct.
For Krishna, again, it's like the Buddha, the karma comes to an end, and then therefore there's no need to reincarnate
Right.
because everything that has been meant to happen to this soul has happened.
Right. Right.
So these are the traditional viewpoints on this subject.
Right.
In the Abrahamic faith, it's of course linear,
Yes.
and that soul will then be judged,
Right.
so on and so forth.
Right.
And this idea of self-liberation or self-realization has inspired millennia, right, globally across the world. If you take out this idea, there is no poetry in life.
Right.
We go through life, we get married, we have kids,
Yeah.
we have business, we have this, we
Yeah.
have that. There's nothing to aspire to.
Right.
Once you put in this idea that this self can be liberated, then the whole new chapter starts.
Absolutely.
Now, that adds to a certain quest, and I think that makes it beautiful.
Absolutely. I think you said it perfectly, Manish. You know, when I discovered and stumbled into spirituality last year, it added a whole new dimension to my life. It added a whole new meaning to my life. You know, before that, I was just, you know, like you mentioned, you know, worried about a career and this and that, the usual things, which of course are nice and beautiful in themselves. But this added a whole new, like you said, the quest for me.
Correct.
Now, you know, I'm enjoying the journey. I'm enjoying seeking,
Correct.
stripping away all what I thought I knew about life.
Yes.
I'm starting to realize that I don't know anything anymore, and it's nice to strip away all previous knowledge, conditioning, and really, you know, become humble again,
Yeah.
and just seek to experience for yourself what life really is about.
I just want to add one thing there, Roy. From
Yeah.
what I know of you, you've arrived at this moment because of mastery in what you were doing.
Right.
At a certain age,
Yeah.
you have mastered everything else,
Yeah.
and now a door has opened. And this
Right.
is very important
Right.
because a lot of people don't master life
Yeah.
and they escape into spirituality.
Uh-huh.
If you don't succeed at life, I don't think you'll succeed at spirituality.
Interesting.
So, a
Interesting.
certain level of excellence in everything that you do
Yes.
will also mean that you have excellence in your spiritual quest.
Right. Right. Interesting. Um, and yeah, going back to my story as well, I think it's interesting, Manish, when you look at the ego and how, when we're born, it's like the first half of our life, through conditioning and society and family and politics and everybody around you and businesses, it's all about growing the ego, right? For the first half of your life. So we want, the best grades in school and university, and then get the best job, get the best house and the car. So we're taught to essentially grow the ego. And then I feel, Manish, at some point in life, or at least this is what happened with me, and I've heard with some others as well, is that there's like a turning point where, once the ego has grown, it now starts to descend back to, or you try to dissolve the ego. And this is what, has been happening on the spiritual path for me. It's all about now stripping back who I thought I was, but who I thought I was just a construct of the mind, right? It's not, like you said, existential reality. It was a mind made construct, which is ego, identification with the mind, that led me to believe I have, this job or this situation or this house or whatever it may be. Um, Now it's like on the decline. It's all about dissolving the ego, or Maya, as they call it.
Sure thing.
Um,
That's very beautiful.
yeah, thank you, thank you. Um, Anything you'd like to add, Manish, on the ego?
Yeah, so without an ego, we cannot survive.
Exactly, it's about
So
survival.
you and me have a functional identity. In the next 45 minutes, you're running a podcast.
Yeah.
I'm your guest discussing spirituality.
Yes.
As we step out of here, you can be anything and I can be anything.
Yes.
If you believe that you're a podcaster and I believe that I'm a wisdom teacher, we are both doomed.
Right.
It is,
Yeah.
and if we don't believe it right now,
Yeah.
we'll be rubbish.
Yes.
It's a functional identity, a functional ego that allows us to have a career, that allows us to have a relationship, that allows us to have everything.
Yeah.
If you don't have that, then you're like a doormat.
Yes.
But having that and yet being free from that is the art.
Yes.
Yes. Suddenly, can you be a king but not be identified as a king? That is a meditator.
Yes.
If you just drop everything and become a beggar, that doesn't make you a content meditator.
Absolutely.
So, having it all but not being affected by it is really the art of the subject.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, yeah, and it brings me to my next point. When people, something that I found very interesting in my journey is when it comes to healing. People go down a psychological, they seek psychological healing, through therapy and things like that. And then people also seek more spiritual paths. But something that I found very interesting, Manish, with these two avenues is that when you look for psychological healing, which is very important, it's all about building and maintaining a healthy mind and ego. So when you look at, like you said, when you go to a psychologist, it's all about helping the mind, correct? And the mind related to the ego as well, in a sense. So it's funny because you start with psychology, healing the mind and the ego, and then once you fall into spirituality, it's then about dissolving the ego that you've built a healthy base on.
Yes.
So I found that an interesting point, something that I've come across.
Yeah.
Anything you'd like to add on this?
So I graduated in psychology.
Oh, nice. Awesome.
And then
Where?
in Bangalore,
Okay,
Bangalore University.
fantastic. I'm actually thinking to go to Bangalore this year.
Okay.
The Art of Living.
Yes.
That's something that I'm considering.
Of course.
But yeah, let's see what happens. But yeah, you can continue.
So I graduated in psychology, and then I went to live with my teacher,
Yeah.
and I lived 7 years. At that point, he was my guru,
Yep.
and I studied yoga.
Okay.
And for me,
Where was this?
this was in Delhi.
Okay.
So for me, I lived in his house and studied with him in the old style.
Yeah.
So for me, psychology is the study of a sick mind,
Right.
and it must be.
Yeah.
And yoga is the study of a healthy mind,
Yes.
and it must be.
Yes.
That is the natural progression
Absolutely.
from studying. When I say sick, now if I'm sitting here and I'm dreaming of my Christmas holiday,
Yeah.
and the next moment I'm thinking about my college sweetheart,
Yeah.
and the next moment I'm thinking about my food,
Yeah.
if I put it all together and I see that every thought has no correlation to the next thought,
Yeah.
that would make me a schizophrenic. Only thing is you cannot hear me thinking,
Right.
so you
Right.
don't send me to an asylum,
Absolutely.
and I don't send you to an
Yeah.
asylum.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But my mind is mad.
Yeah.
When I understand that, there is no question but to find a center deeper than the mind.
Right.
How much will I keep changing the mind? Like a dog running behind its tail, this neural pathway that is jealousy or insecurity wants to be overcome by this neural pathway that is saying be the best version of yourself.
Right.
Already I've become two.
Mm-hmm.
I can never be content because the energy that it takes to keep this neural pathway subduing this will consume me.
Right.
That is why you find a lot of people who are very moral to be very uptight because they cannot be easy.
Yeah.
And if you cannot be easy, you're wasting a lot of energy to maintain a certain decorum.
Right.
That's why you find that people who are very religious, very much saying we want to change the world, they're always serious about it.
Yeah.
Because if they ease out, they will just chill.
Mm-hmm.
So, one neural pathway with that desire to be better is overrunning another neural pathway that is jealous.
Right.
That is psychology.
Right. Right.
And the years go by, the therapist changes, the
Yeah.
problem really never completely resolves.
Right. Right.
Yoga is just asking, is there something deeper than the mind?
Right.
Manish cannot access that.
Yeah.
Because Manish is the mind.
Correct.
Something watches the mind.
Absolutely.
That awareness. And then nothing needs to be done.
Right.
As soon as I start to see that I'm getting jealous, it stops.
Yeah.
If I try to stop it, I'll be like the moral people, using a lot of energy to be a good person.
Right. Right.
And I'll be uptight. As soon as awareness happens, it drops.
Yeah.
Then the next thought starts.
Right.
As soon as awareness happens, it drops. Those moments of silence, if they can become a full day, a lifetime,
Right.
that beauty is what we're after.
Absolutely.
And anything less than that would require effort.
Right.
Awareness, by its very nature, requires you to be effortless.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the difference between the two. In psychology,
Right.
using the mind to control the mind. Control leads to some sickness.
Right.
Awareness, watching the mind, there's nothing to judge
Yeah.
because you're not even there.
Right.
When you're not there, only existence is.
Right. Absolutely. Like you said, it's about the awareness that's sitting behind all of this, right? It's sitting behind the mind. They call it awareness, they call it consciousness. And you know what I've learned, Manish, is that from a consciousness point of view, you have like 4 objects of consciousness, which is the mind, the body, the emotions, and the energy inside. And all of these are not you. It's what you are identified with, correct? And that's where the ego kicks in. But your awareness or your consciousness is conscious of these 4 things: mind, body, emotions, and energy.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that residing in that awareness would be defined as yoga.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, yeah, and then the next point I wanted to mention, Manish, is you know, the true power of meditation. And maybe we can discuss a few different types of meditation. Because, for example, when I first started meditation, it was more from a psychological aspect, right? You read the benefits online: better sleep, better mood, less anxiety, better focus, better creativity. And that's why, a large amount of people decide to start meditating.
Absolutely.
As I started to dig a little bit deeper into meditation and got into spirituality,
Yeah.
what I found is that all of these things are fantastic, but they're almost like side effects
100%.
of meditation.
Yes.
And there's something way beyond meditation that's the true almost essence or purpose of meditation.
Exactly.
So if you can touch a little bit on that.
I think it's really simple. If you understand that today may be the last day that you're alive,
Yeah,
nobody needs to teach you meditation.
right.
If that can be the way you live,
Absolutely.
this may be the very last afternoon, this may be the last time I'm having lunch,
Yeah,
then your entire life transforms.
absolutely. That's a nice way to look at it.
Meditation is too beautiful to outsource to anyone,
Yeah,
however beautiful that person may be,
yeah,
because nobody should be telling you how to connect to yourself.
absolutely.
Just the realization that this may be the last time I'm speaking to somebody. Obviously, I'm going to speak lovingly to you
Right,
because I may not get a chance ever again to speak to anybody.
sure.
When I will call my mom, it may be the last time I'm speaking to her.
Right.
When I take a shower, it may be the last.
Yeah,
That is enough.
right.
But how do we make that a mandate? Now, different meditation techniques. I want to be in this moment. I cannot be. So I start to chant a mantra or I start to say a prayer. That prayer is taking me away from this present moment.
Mm-hmm.
But over the years, it leads me to a certain level of focus so that it starts to happen subconsciously.
Mm-hmm.
And I can be here while this mantra is going on at the back.
Mm-hmm.
Someday that will have to drop.
Yeah.
I started it just to be present.
Yes.
But instead of my mind, while looking at the camera, thinking about college, thinking about food,
Yeah.
thinking about Christmas, I said, let it keep saying a prayer or a mantra. So I'm doing Om, Om, Om,
Yeah.
Om. But my purpose was just to be in the moment.
Yeah.
But it's taking me away in the
Right.
direction I have chosen.
Right.
But someday it'll have to stop.
Yeah.
Another meditation can be active meditation.
Right.
I want to be still and silent. I cannot be. So I go for a run. I go dance. I do something active.
Right.
It took me a long time to understand why people run.
Mm-hmm.
I used to train a lot of runners.
Yeah.
And I kept asking. Finally, I understood that all of them are telling me that after 5, 6, 7 kilometers, they become quiet.
Yeah.
So movement was a way to stillness.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Similarly, we see with yoga, it's all vinyasa. When we
Yeah.
think of yoga, it's just stillness.
Right.
But you need to move
Right.
just to attain to stillness, to
Right.
match the moving mind. So now you have started to move, active meditation, but you're doing it actually just to be still.
Right.
There will come a point where you have to drop that.
Right.
Maybe you do it, but you know that you're doing it just to be still.
Yeah.
The other kind of meditation is visualizing something.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be in this moment. I cannot be. So I visualize something. I manifest it. I visualize.
Yeah.
But my purpose was to be in the moment.
Right.
Now, by looking at one particular thing, I remove distraction. So what we are saying essentially with meditation technique is
Yeah.
right now I have a million thoughts.
Right.
I want to break it down to one thought.
Yes.
But someday that one should also drop. If it doesn't drop, I'll be a good meditator, but I would not have found my truth.
Right.
If I cook and cook and cook and I become a good cook, obviously.
Yeah.
If I meditate and meditate and meditate and become a good meditator, obvious.
Right.
But you're not meditating to be a good meditator.
Absolutely.
You're meditating so that you can experience life and not meditation.
Absolutely.
That eventually the one thought should also drop.
Yeah.
So whatever technique you choose, you have to master one so that eventually that also drops and leaves you.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's a beautiful way to look at it, and it's very true. Like you said, the end goal of meditation is not to become a good meditator.
Correct.
These are all different techniques,
Correct.
like you said, to narrow your focus onto a single point.
Correct.
But eventually, the point is to even transcend that.
Yeah. You shouldn't need it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's the type of meditation I'm doing now, is transcendental meditation, they're calling it. which is the use of the mantra. And I think it's very powerful.
Okay. You know, Roy, when I went to live with my teacher, after the first 2 weeks, I noticed this man doesn't do any yoga, doesn't do any meditation.
Yeah.
From the moment he wakes up to the moment he goes to sleep, there are students around. Even at night where he's sleeping, there are students sleeping there.
Yeah.
He's not faking it.
Yeah.
So I had studied psychology. It dawned on me, what kind of a person doesn't need any downtime? I need downtime.
Right.
I've had a busy day. I want to process. So I started to notice in 7 years that I lived with him, I never saw him practice. But I never saw him lost even one moment.
Right.
For me, that was the definition of yoga, that you're present.
Right.
It intrigued me. Around a yogi, you hang around just to see what is that person doing uniquely. It's not for the techniques.
Right.
Techniques a teacher like me can teach.
Yeah.
But a yogi, you go to just hang and see what makes that person so unique. They don't need a technique. Like, what are they doing that there is always presence? That really intrigued me.
Right.
And that's why I stayed on so long, just to see if this person is real or not real. If it is not real, then all these years of yoga is not worth it.
Yeah. And I guess the next point I wanted to discuss, it's something that I attended your workshop for last week, and that's where we first met as
Yes.
well. I love the way that you described the chakra system. You described it in a very beautiful story, and if you can touch a little bit about the importance of the chakras and what they are and things like that.
Sure. So in a very brief nutshell, as we discussed that day, everything is vibrating in the cosmos.
Yeah.
Which means I'm vibrating at a particular frequency, so are you, so is everybody.
Sure.
That frequency dictates your thoughts and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So if I'm vibrating at the first Mooladhara chakra, my fundamental focus on life is security. Now I start to do something with my life, either meditation, yoga, or I take more responsibility. I live more intensely, and then I seek out pleasure in life. I live more intensely, I go to the next one, power, love, and non-sort of acceptance, and then non-duality. So that allows me to live more intensely through these experiences of chakras. And we spoke of chakras as vortices of energy, thousands in the body, of which 7 are important.
Right.
And it just allows a person to live with a certain level of vibration.
Right.
When you say, I like somebody's vibe, we just say it.
Right. But we don't know.
We don't know what we are saying. It's not logical.
Yeah.
But there's something about the vibe of that person that resonates.
Right.
So we are throwing off a vibe all the time. If that vibe changes, can it be changed? If it can't be changed from birth to death, why bother with prayer and meditation?
Right.
If it can be changed, does it impact my day-to-day life? I think it does.
Yeah.
Because a person living from a loving space lives a more rich life than a person living from a survival space.
Absolutely.
However, if you have not sorted survival, better to do that first.
Yes.
If you have not sorted out pleasure, better to do that first.
Yes.
Because you cannot love yourself till you have not sustained your survival, your pleasure, your power. If you don't do what you want and say in life without hurting people, if you don't do that, you cannot love yourself. And that journey.
Right. Absolutely. And, I found out, with meditation, you're essentially working on all of the chakras, right? You're working on clearing out all the blockages, or they call it samskaras.
Yeah, samskaras.
So with meditation, you're clearing out your samskaras, essentially clearing all the energetic blockages from your past to be able to let the energy flow throughout all the chakra system.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And remember we discussed, Manish, you were asking us which chakra we think we're on. And everybody said the heart chakra. How, I don't know if this is a valid question or not, but how would you be able to sort of know which chakra you may be on right now? Is there a way, or is it just intuition?
I think mainly intuition. I mean, you do have some machines nowadays, but
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would prefer to use intuition.
Right.
If you feel that most of my day I'm trying to figure out my work, I'm trying to sort of figure out my survival,
Yeah.
then I'm probably Mooladhara Chakra.
Okay.
If most of my day I'm trying to seek out pleasure, where can I go get a good meal, where can I go watch a nice play, I'm probably Swadhisthana. If most of my day I'm trying to make a change in the world,
Yeah.
I'm probably Manipura.
Mm-hmm.
And if most of my day I'm creative and I love and accept people as they are, I'm probably Anahata,
Mm-hmm.
and so on.
I see. I see. Beautiful. Um, and the next question I had for you, Manish, I don't know if this is something in your domain, but Ayurveda.
Yeah.
If you can touch a little bit on that, So for me, growing up in between Montreal and Dubai, more Western traditions, we generally look at Western medicine as the holy grail of medicine, right? And all insurances, they cover mainly Western hospitals and things like that.
Correct.
So I grew up thinking Western medicine is the only solution.
Sure.
And anytime you're sick or you're not feeling well, you need to go to, maybe a Western hospital, American hospital, German hospital. Um, yeah. And then I recently stumbled upon different forms of the medical system, namely Ayurveda, and there's also Chinese medicine as well. So
TCM.
these two I had previously thought are pseudoscientific, they don't work, they're quote unquote, BS, or at least
Yes.
that's what I was told when I was younger.
Sure thing.
And now I'm finding actually there's, it might be the other way around almost
Sure
in
thing.
a sense. No, but I'm finding that each has their own benefits.
100%.
Western medicine is of course very valuable and it's
100%.
great for urgent intervention.
Yes.
Somebody breaks their leg or they need a heart surgery
Surgery.
that's urgent. You can resort to Western medicine, but then Ayurveda and even Chinese medicine have more like preventative measures as well.
Sure.
Anything you can tell us about Ayurveda, maybe?
Sure. So, any medical system should cover the whole range.
Yeah.
So, if we remove, let's not say Eastern and Western,
Sure.
let's say ancient and modern.
Interesting. Yeah.
Because Ayurveda, 2000 years ago, was describing surgeries like cataract, rhinoplasty,
Yeah.
was all described. It had a whole, there are 8 categories under Ayurveda.
Yeah.
So for our listeners, Ayurveda is the world's oldest healing modality, still being practiced today.
Yeah.
There
And
are
it's
older
older than the
ones.
Chinese medicine.
And
Wow.
still being practiced
Yes.
very, very, by about 500 million Indians and so many globally.
Right.
Now, the question is not Western versus ancient.
Sure.
Like you rightly said, the modern science is the best. If you have a surgery, it has to be.
Right.
Most people's problems are chronic in nature.
Right.
So if you and me both have a headache, now we both have the same paracetamol, but the reason that you have a headache and the reason that I have a headache is totally different.
Absolutely.
Your constitution and my constitution is totally different.
Yeah.
So you cannot have one size fits all.
Yeah.
So that is where the ancient traditions work very well in chronic situations.
Right.
I get a headache. I don't want to just clear the symptom. I want to understand the cause.
Right.
Now, in an urgent scenario, it has to be symptomatic, cure. But when you have the time, it has to be looking at the root. The root of your headache and my headache are totally different.
Yeah.
Now, traditionally, for the last 10,000 years, globally, whichever culture anybody belonged to, it was herbal remedies. In the last 100 years, it's chemical.
Right.
So to call herbal remedies alternative is a bit off.
Yeah. Yeah, fair point.
It was mainstream for 10,000 years
Yeah,
and more. So the way to look at it is just that.
Yeah.
Like in the 8 categories of Ayurveda,
Yeah.
one of them dealt with surgery. Today, you don't need that for surgery because a hospital, an allopathy hospital, will do it much better.
Sure.
But, and when you wake up in the morning, but you're not feeling fully alive, maybe the allopathy hospital doesn't have anything for you.
Yeah.
And there you look at TCM, you look at Ayurveda, because they have studied a human being for millennia,
Right.
as opposed to 300 years.
Yeah.
And even the modern science, medicine, is based on Hippocrates and his studies from ancient Greece.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you look at it as modern and ancient, use technology.
Yeah.
Even Ayurveda is a science. It
Yeah.
has to work with technology.
Right.
Just,
Absolutely.
just like yoga has to keep changing and improving, it's a science.
Yeah.
So does Ayurveda. But the fundamental understanding of a human being is very holistic in the Ayurveda system.
Yeah.
Ayur means life,
Yes.
Veda means science, the
Right.
science of living.
Right.
Very interesting because suppose you went to an Ayurveda doctor in time.
Yeah.
He would walk into the forest, pick out the right herbs for you, give
Yeah.
it to you. Can you imagine 100,000 formulae are there without an electron microscope?
Right.
So, what is the level of intuition of that healer
Right.
to know which herbs make which medicine? Suppose you're not digesting your food well.
Yeah.
Suppose you're lacking in mojo,
Yeah.
and so on and so forth. The whole science of supplements and so on has been going on for millennia.
Right.
So it's time tested.
Right.
That's
Right.
the whole thing. So as long as we understand it as this for the emergency, like you rightly said,
Yes.
and this for the chronic,
Yes.
that's
Absolutely.
the best way to go about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. 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 Absolutely. It's looking at, like you said, instead of treating the symptom,
Yeah.
you treat the root cause.
Exactly.
And if it's something chronic, you want to get to the root cause and not just the symptom.
Correct.
Unless the symptom is very urgent, like we were mentioning.
Correct.
Always better to go to the root of the problem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a branch out of the 8 branches, there's one branch that's called Bhuta Vidya, which deals with spirits.
Okay.
20 years ago, if you had to meet me, I was straight out of psychology graduation. I would have said, what rubbish.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
no such thing as spirits, it's all in the mind.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But you read the Bible, and
Yeah.
Christ is always removing spirits from people. That's how
Right.
he treats people.
Yeah.
So there may be something to it. After 20 years, I've reached the point where I don't know.
Right.
It's not my area of interest,
Sure. Sure. Sure.
but I don't know. There's
Sure.
so much more
Right,
than
right.
meets the eye.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
I think the value of a good education is to reach that point of understanding the limits of logic.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, the final point I wanted to discuss today, Manish, I don't know if you've been to any ashrams before. I'm planning to go to my first one this year. I still haven't decided which one. I'm still deciding between the various ones. But I've read about attending ashrams and, how that can help you on a spiritual level, even on a psychological level as well. You just feel a lot more humble, a lot more growth spiritually. Yeah, have you ever done any experiences like that?
So, like I told you, I lived 7 years with my guru
This was in an ashram.
in his house.
Okay,
So we were few students that lived with him.
okay.
Personally, Roy, since we are friends,
Yeah,
whenever anybody asks me the question, I always say India is too beautiful to be stuck in any ashram.
interesting.
It is really that beautiful.
Yeah,
I would highly recommend you go to the mountains, find a simple guest house.
yeah,
You know enough of meditation.
right.
Get up in the morning, tell them just give me the food at breakfast, lunch, dinner, don't talk to me.
Yeah,
Go take a walk in the mountains, do your
Interesting,
practices,
interesting.
do your journaling.
yeah,
I don't like the idea of going to a place where people dictate what time you should get up, what time you should go for group
Interesting, wow.
meditation, what time you should do this, believe this, don't eat this, don't eat that.
yeah,
At your level of sort of quest, you're a genuine seeker.
yeah.
You don't need somebody to tell you.
Wow, interesting. You just changed my whole travel plans.
Exactly. Exactly. You go to
Okay,
the
interesting.
mountains. Why do you want to be stuck in some building
Yeah,
with 1,000 other people all following?
right.
Go to the mountains, small little
Interesting.
guest house.
Interesting.
You know enough
Yeah.
yoga, meditation. Trek those mountains.
Yeah.
Just sit, see a sunrise, see a sunset.
Interesting. Interesting.
Eat simple food.
Interesting.
You don't need. This is my take.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, interesting. I thought I've never even been to India.
Yeah.
So I was thinking of going and visiting. I have a friend that lives there in Bangalore as well. So I was thinking of doing an ashram and then maybe exploring a little bit. But yeah, maybe now you changed my my plans now. In the Himalayas is where you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It's so beautiful. You see the mountains, and people have walked those trails
Yeah.
forever. You go sit at a small, tea store,
Yeah.
and you see the time those people have.
Yeah.
If you happen, see, one of the problems with the ashrams is the main guru is not there.
Okay.
Some
Interesting.
teacher will be teaching, or he may be put up on a giant screen.
Yeah.
You go to an ashram. The word ashram means literally a place where you raise heat.
Interesting.
You want to be around a person, so we call it satsang,
Yeah.
around a person of truth.
Yes.
Now, if the person is not there, and some teacher like me is
But if the
there.
person isn't there, there won't be any other guru or yogi.
There will
or...
be other teachers like me.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
want to be with the person who's arrived.
Right.
You
Right.
want to
Right.
hang with that
Yes.
person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, if that person is not there, there is no ashram.
Sure. Sure. Okay. Interesting.
Then you're going from an organized, whatever it may be, a
Yeah.
Vatican or whatever, to
right.
an organized
to an
ashram.
organized. Yeah.
Rather than that, go into nature,
Yeah.
just be. The simple people in the mountains, the way they have time will slow you down.
Right. Right.
So
right.
this is my,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't like that organized setup.
Interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting point. I'll consider it. I'll reach out to you if anything. Well, okay, Manish, I think that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on the podcast.
You're very
Again, I know this was very last minute and you squeezed it in your schedule. So thank you so much, Manish. I really appreciate it. Hopefully, we'll be able to help some people join the path as well on this episode as well.
Roy, let me take a moment to thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure. And in the brief time we've known each other, I have a deep respect for your level of inquiry.
Thank you.
And I think that's what makes this a blossoming friendship.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Manish. I really appreciate it. Namaste.
Namaste.
Is it good? Perfect. Thank you, Manish.
brother.
Yeah, that was great.
So
that was
beautiful.
fun. Yeah, that was really fun. That was super fun. Thank you. Yeah.